topic, that is information transfer. We are going to learn that topic, transfer of information from verbal to non-verbal and non-verbal to verbal form. So students, the topic that we will be doing now is information transfer. You have done this topic last year. Let me explain what is meant by information transfer. Information transfer involves moving information from one form to the other. And these forms are categorized as verbal and non-verbal. So you either transfer information from verbal to non-verbal form or vice versa. That is non-verbal to verbal form. Now what is meant by verbal form? In verbal form, the information is contained in the form of a paragraph. That is, from a paragraph form, it has to be transferred into a non-verbal form, which includes line graph, bar graph, pie chart, flow chart, divided circle, divided rectangle, tree diagram, or even a simple table. So students, before I go into detail, let me explain to you by way of rules. Information transfer involves moving a piece of information from one form to the other. This can be done in two ways: verbal to non-verbal, which you also call note making. This involves transferring a given information from a paragraph into a table, tree diagram, flow chart, web diagram, bar graph, pie diagram, line graph, etc. The second category is non-verbal to verbal. This involves transferring the information given in a sketch or illustration into a paragraph form. Now when I say sketch or illustration, I mean the table, tree diagram, line graph, bar graph, flow chart, web diagram, etc. What are the rules for transferring information to the verbal form? We can put them as 5 important rules. The first rule is you have to provide a suitable title. A title is a must. A suitable title is provided. After that, it is important to begin the first line as follows. The first line should be: the given bar graph depicts the sale of two-wheelers in the last decade. Or it can also be: the given table shows the enrollment of children in the village schools of Maharashtra from a certain period to a certain period. So you have to begin the first line by saying that it is whatever it is, the given bar graph or flow chart or table or tree diagram depicts. What does it depict? That has to be mentioned. Your information should be transferred into a single paragraph of 15 to 20 lines. You can go up to 25 lines also, provided you are able to do justice to that sketch. You cover everything that is given in the sketch. The next rule is, do not provide any additional information. That is, other than what is given in that sketch or in that paragraph. You are not supposed to bring any information that is external to it. And the last point, include all the points or features that are given in the sketch or illustration. That means all the features should have a mention in your transfer of information. Now, how do we attempt this question on information transfer? Now, for this question, you will be given some information in the form of a table, a tree diagram, flow chart, a web, a pie diagram, or even a map. Now, information of this type is called nonverbal. The information given will be a bare minimum. It will be diagrammatical or pictorial and consist of a few words, meaning it will be in the form of a diagram. Diagrammatical means a diagram or a sketch or an illustration, or it may just be what you call a picture composition type, and it will consist only few words. The information will be about some topic or issue which will be mentioned either as the title of the table, pie diagram or tree diagram, or in the center of the web or map. It is mandatory to read the points carefully, and it is also very important to understand what is expected in the answer. You are expected to use the information to write a paragraph covering all the given points. Now let me read out example 1 for you, wherein you are going to transfer information from a verbal to a non-verbal form. Read the given extract carefully and complete the following. The river Nile was the lifeline of ancient Egypt. It still is. Every spring, when the snow melted in the mountains, the Nile rose in flood and spilled across the fields, not only watering them, but leaving a fertile coat of mud. The pharaohs or kings of ancient Egypt left many wonderful monuments which we can still see today. The pyramids and the Sphinx are the most famous of these. There are 3 large pyramids at Giza. The biggest, built for Khufu, was about 148 meters tall and was made from 2.3 million blocks of stone. Each pyramid took about 20 years to build. The ancient Egyptians believed that when a person was alive, he or she had 3 souls. When the person died, the 3 souls would die too and not go to the next world if the body was not kept as it was. That is why they tried to keep the bodies of the pharaohs by embalming them with oil and salt and wrapping them with bandages to create a mummy. So after I have read this, I'm sure you've got some understanding of this passage. There is mention of River Nile. There is mention of the pyramids. There is mention of the pharaohs who were Egyptian rulers. And there is also a mention of the process of embalming the dead body, which we call mummification. And the dead bodies are called mummies. Now, if this passage is given to you, you will get a kind of table, let's call it a table, and you have to fill in the details relevant to the table. So the title that we give is Life in Egypt, and there are 3 blanks which you have to fill in. One is regarding the river Nile, which features in your first para. Second is about the pyramids and the Sphinx. And the third is about the mummy. So the answer is given to you here. The answer is, for river Nile you will write, it was the lifeline of Egypt. It was a source of water and fertility of soil. You can say soil fertility. The pyramids and the Sphinx, you will mention it was, no need of writing it was, you can write in point form. Was built by the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. 3 large pyramids at Giza, each took 20 years to build. The biggest built for Khufu, about 147 meters tall, made from 2.3 million blocks of stone. And the last part that you have to fill, the last part is about the mummy. So you'll have to mention the bodies of pharaohs are embalmed using oil and salt and wrapped with bandages. You should also make a mention that the Egyptians believed that mummification ensured the 3 souls of a person to go to the next world after death. Okay, so we have covered everything that is given in the passage. Now, there is another exercise. Observe the following web diagram carefully and convert it into a paragraph. Again, this is non-verbal to verbal. So in this, we have to add a few more points to the given information. And the topic is about sources of energy. And the different sources are coal, electricity, sun, rain, and wind. Now it's extremely difficult to write a paragraph with so little information. So this is how it is prepared for you, and please pay careful attention. So we write a verbal paragraph of 80 to 100 words as follows. First and foremost, we give a title, a very relevant, apt title, sources of energy. There are various sources of energy. The most conventional one is electricity. Most towns and villages in our country are electrified. It is certainly convenient to get energy at the flick of a switch. There are also other sources of energy like coal, which is a non-renewable source. However, the energy generated from the sun, wind, and rain are renewable. Today, efforts are being made to preserve the non-renewable sources and use more of the renewable ones. We need energy to run our homes and offices. In tropical countries like India, solar energy can be used much more effectively than it is being done today. There are also efforts to harness more energy by installing windmills. Scientists are stepping up their efforts to find many alternative sources of energy for the ever-growing needs of the world. Now, students, you may have noticed that we had to get in a certain bit of information from out, but that doesn't mean it has altered the web that is presented. Because there were just limited information contained in the web, we had to extend it, we had to elaborate it so as to put in 80 to 100 words. Now I have given you a bar graph and a line graph too. You can utilize them as homework to understand information transfer better. Both those diagrams or sketches that you see, they are non-verbal. So you have to include them in a verbal paragraph. So, as I said, we follow the rules that I stated. First and foremost, providing a suitable title. Secondly, it is very important to begin the first line saying that the given bar graph indicates this is this, or the given double line graph indicates this kind of information. If you're talking about graphs, you'll have to mention what is in the x-axis, what is in the y-axis, and gradually go from the lowest to the highest point. Follow that sequence. You go from the lowest to the highest point. And whenever you interpret a line graph or a bar graph, we do use certain phrases. For example, we say that saw a dip in so and so year, or we say it skyrocketed in so and so year, or you can say that more or less it remained constant where the difference was, or you can even say that with regard to that bar graph that I've given, since it's indicative of growth in population, you can mention how there was a gradual but steady growth in population and later on which increased alarmingly. You can also use phrases like in addition to, or in sharp contrast to what was seen in the year so and so. Okay, or you can use in comparison to a particular year. You can say the growth was negligent. Okay, or you can say the growth was very minimal with hardly negligible difference. You can say a very negligible difference, or you can say that the difference is a marked one. So you can use such words or phrases that will enhance your write-up. And if you take into consideration information transfer, it is far more easier to do verbal to non-verbal. Because the most common sketches that you're supposed to do will be a table, a tabular representation, or it can be a tree diagram, or a web, or a flow chart. So it is far more easy. The other choice is you transfer the information from non-verbal to verbal. That also is comparatively easy, for you don't have to bring any you can say wordplay. Don't include any wordplay. Keep your content simple, keep it apt, keep it relevant. Here it is not a test of your creativity, it is only a test of your understanding, your comprehension, and using it in the correct slots. So students, today we did a chapter from your textbook World Heritage, and as I said earlier, kindly read the last chapter in your history textbook on heritage management. It will give you a better understanding and more insights into this particular topic. In composition, information transfer, both verbal to non-verbal and non-verbal to verbal, has been explained to you. I hope you have comprehended it well, and I want you to do the last two diagrams or sketches, that is the bar graph and the line graph. You can do it in your composition book, the very book that you maintained for the first semester. Use the same book, because you have the entire grammar and composition and the entire textbook this year for 10th standard. So kindly attempt it. Use the rules that were explained to you. That will enable you to present it in the right format. And I hope this session has been an enriching one for you. And I hope I have made it as explicit as possible to you. And I sincerely expect you to attempt both the topics, that is, two topics that are in verbal, that are to be converted into verbal form. I hope you enjoyed this session as much as I have worked towards presenting it before you. Thank you.